Right. You understand a little bit about these sorts of things, security that prime ministers in particular should expect. He was obviously on his plane to California yesterday, just about the time that we think these protesters were at the property. Should there have been somebody there to make sure that this wouldn't happen?
Absolutely, Bev. I mean, I'm really quite astounded by, firstly, how well organised Greenpeace are, although to a certain extent they've been doing these sort of stunts for many, many years. So, they're very well rehearsed. They'll certainly have done their planning. But the thing that concerns me the most is this is a very prominent property of Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak, who is our Prime Minister. And he is an individual who is vulnerable to a wide spectrum of threats. Amongst those will be eco-zealots, but it could be also terrorists. And we look at this particular operation, and this wasn't a simple case of a number of individuals turning up on the day and rolling this out. This was well planned, well rehearsed, and inevitably well equipped.
Is it normal, do you think, Will, for a Prime Minister's constituency home, though, to have no security? As we were just saying earlier, I don't want to live in a world where all of our MPs or our ministers have to be in gated communities. The whole point of our old-fashioned democratic, particularly the constituency system and the surgeries that MPs do, is that they can be close to the public. Do you think this would signal a change, maybe?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I'm really, really quite surprised, Bev, anyway, the fact that there was no security, albeit in a very low-level sense, that would have prevented this happening. And I'm not just talking about these guys turning up this morning and actually carrying out their stunt. I'm talking about the detection. I mean, one of the things that we in security will continually drone on about is threat detection, and it's that hostile reconnaissance in advance. Now, this should have been picked up well in advance. I mean, if you drive through, for example, Connaught Square in central London, where Tony Blair has an actual residence, you will never drive past it and not see uniformed police officers outside it. So this is a retired Prime Minister, not an active Prime Minister who is in a position during a very contentious period, particularly when it comes to climate change, when it comes to eco-zealots. We only have to see Just Stop Oil on a weekly basis carrying out their stunts. But this is an individual that a strike by a terrorist group would be a huge success. And in this instance, obviously, it's eco-zealots unfurling, obviously, a black blanket to demonstrate their point and get their agenda across. But what's to say there wouldn't be a lone actor who, with an improvised explosive device that they've created, putting that on the property, whether that was on a delayed timer that could be remotely triggered, or whether it be a device which literally exploded there and then, that even symbolically, without the family actually being a resident at the time, would send out huge reverberations, obviously within the terrorist community, but also to the international community at how poorly protected he seems to be in this instant.
And it's worth emphasising again at this point that this isn't a holiday home. This is the family home of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister often works up from his constituency. No doubt there are national security-related documents in that building. Of course, when he was Chancellor, developed the Darlington campus of the Treasury, where he worked at least once a month, and he does visit there often as Prime Minister as well. No doubt within that building there are some very sensitive documents. This is a huge risk.
Yeah, it's huge, Tom. I mean, and again, we go back to Joe Cox. I mean, is it really that long ago before we start thinking about MPs in their own constituencies? And this is just standard MPs and about their personal protection, their personal safety. This is the Prime Minister of our country. I mean, it's almost laughable, the fact that there was no means of security to prevent these individuals getting on there. Now, the one thing we know with environmental groups and protest groups is they're very savvy to what the law is. So in terms of what they could be prosecuted for, unfurling black sheets is not criminal damage. Them being on top of the actual residence itself, again, falls into this very foggy, very ambiguous law that we have in this country on trespass. So there's every good chance they'll probably be released with caution once they've eventually been taken off the building. But certainly there are health and safety implications. The police simply can't drag them off the top of the building. They could be there certainly for the rest of today, if not for a few days. And we've seen this before with other groups like Fathers for Justice, who've climbed either on the outside of Buckingham Palace or up large cranes and caused huge amounts of publicity for their cause, but also huge amounts of disruption. In this instance, probably very little disruption, but it is embarrassing.
OK, thank you so much, security expert Will Geddes here. You've been